Thank you so much, Joy. I'm so honored to be here speaking with you. And Dr. Peprah, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did. It was an incredibly powerful conversation. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of that.
Diana, I'm
yes.
gonna just pause for just a minute because for some reason we see a black screen, and let's see if we can't change that instead of your beautiful face, which we saw earlier today. Let's see if we can change that.
It looks like my camera is on, and it's not that beautiful. So you're not missing out on much. So if I need,
well, we'll show your photo later. Okay, great. It looks like some people can see you, so I'm not sure what's happening on my end. I'm so glad everyone else can see you, or at least several of you can. So Diana, I'll turn it back to you, and thanks for bearing with us on that little glitch there.
Oh, please. This is the new reality, right? Figuring out all these tech calls, so it's totally fine. So every year, Motherly does a State of Motherhood survey where we send out a survey to the members of our community, and we work with our distribution partners like Mom Congress to get the survey out to as many mothers as possible so that we can get a sense of what is really going on for mothers in this country. So again, this was our third year. This year, we sent it out via a subscribers list, social media, and partner channels. 3,800 mothers responded. This report focuses on millennial women, of which there are about 3,200 respondents. And we're looking at millennial women being aged 24 to 39. The data that we collected were then weighted to reflect the racial and ethnic composition of the U.S. female millennial cohort based in the U.S. Census data, and Edge Research helped us do this. And then additionally, we finished the survey in March, I believe, and then suddenly we realized that there was this really big thing in the world happening that was probably affecting motherhood pretty significantly. So we sent out the COVID-19 addendum survey, which reached about 3,100 millennial mothers, just to get a real sense of what millennial moms are going through with COVID. So one of the biggest things, and I'm going to highlight sort of some of the most dramatic findings of this study, but it's a really rich study with tons and tons of data. So I would encourage you to dig into it a little bit more if this is of interest. And I'm just going to highlight some of the big things. One of the biggest things that we find year after year is that mothers in the United States do not feel supported, and it's been going up. So this year, 89% of mothers say no when asked if society is sufficiently supporting mothers. Last year it was 85%, the year before it was 74%. Essentially, this means that our society is not showing mothers that they are important. And it's incredibly distressing to experience living in a society that doesn't show you that is important. And ultimately, we need to understand all of the systemic foundational problems that are making mothers feel this way. Systemic racism, of course, heteronormative expectations, misogyny, economic disparities. There's so much foundationally that is causing mothers to feel unsupported. And part of the work at Motherly, and I know at Mom Congress, and many organizations beyond, is to really identify what those issues are and attack those issues. Because when we continue to sort of look at the surface of mom's well-being, that's great, but it's not good enough. Very similar to what Dr. Peprah was saying, living with chronic stress and feeling unsupported has very significant implications. And so we, all of us need to look at what those foundational issues are. When we ask moms what they think they need in order to feel more supported, they comment on stronger government policies around paid family leave, more childcare. And they also talked a lot about their employers, so wanting more understanding employers. This included things like flexible work schedules, paid maternity leave, either childcare on-site or subsidies to help pay for childcare, one of the things that we talk about at Motherly a lot is wondering how COVID-19, certainly it's been tremendous hardship. We also wonder what we can learn from this experience and how maybe we can take a lot of the learnings and apply them to help make things better. The analogy that I keep coming up with, and it's like kind of a gross analogy, so bear with me, but I also feel like we're moms, so we can deal with gross stuff often, right? But if you've ever had like a fish tank and you go to clean out the fish tank and you have to like get the gravel up, and when you clean the gravel, like all the muck from in the gravel comes up and you're like, whoa, the water's really gross. I feel in a way like COVID-19 has done that. It's kind of like all of these issues have been here, right? None of this is new, but it's giving us an opportunity to say like, whoa, there are some really significant issues that we were like kind of ignoring and, stamping down under the gravel. And now the water's really cloudy and we're like, oh, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem. And so in a lot of ways, I think that that COVID, certainly it's not a blessing or anything like that, but things can come from the problems that COVID has helped us to identify. And a lot of that has to do with mothers who are employed. Flexible work schedules, the ability to work from home. I forget who said this quote. The name is escaping me, but the person who said that our society expects us to parent like we don't have children, and I'm sorry, parent like we don't have a job and work like we don't have children. And I think that COVID has really shown our country that no, we have both of these things. We are mothers and we are employed. And these things go very much hand in hand. And so we are now trying to work on ways that that we can have both of those existences and not have to hide one from the other. 10% of moms say that better social support would make the most difference. And this is even more important to the non-employed moms than it is to the employed moms. Yeah. So when we look at social support is essentially feeling like you have access to people who will help you, or actually having access to people who will help you. Both of those are important. Now, mothers in our survey told us that 71% of moms are raising their family with members of their own family or their partner's family close by. And almost 60% do have a non-family village. About 50% feel very supported at home. Unfortunately, about 50% say that they are only somewhat supported. So there is a significant amount of sort of quantity of support, with, almost 3/4 of parents living near people that can help them, but they still feel unsupported. So it seems like we need to work on the quality of this support. And again, understanding that a lot of the issues that are affecting mothers right now are sort of foundational issues. And so, yeah, you have someone who can come over and help you, make you dinner that night, or yeah, you have a family member who can watch your kids if you need to go to the dentist emergently or something like that, and that's wonderful. That doesn't discount the fact that there are huge foundational issues in the society that we really need to work on. When we look at where moms feel like they need the most support, over a third said that it's physical and mental health. And of note, less than half felt that they are always listened to by healthcare providers. And Dr. Peprah, I'm so grateful for you sharing the history of Black mothers that you did. And certainly that is, I think, a big component of what we're seeing with these survey results as well. As Dr. Peprah shared, Black women are significantly more at risk of dying and having severe morbidity from pregnancy, birth, and postpartum complications. And one of the biggest issues that we have seen is the lack of providers listening. And researchers are finding, for example, that providers are less likely to respond quickly to reported symptoms when those symptoms are being reported by a Black woman. So a woman says, I have XYZ concerning symptom, and it's dismissed. And so really, as a medical provider, ensuring that I am always listening and also doing the work to advocate for women and supporting and holding our own medical professionals accountable and making sure that we face the reality of this and that we just do a better job of listening, and again holding professionals accountable for listening to women, because women know their bodies and we can trust women to tell us what's going on with their bodies. Women also need more support in the home, and they need more support with their spouses. One note that I think ties into the social support piece a little bit, that I just as a midwife find sad and fascinating, is that 31% of millennial women are having postpartum sex before they feel ready to do so. This was a new aspect of the study that we actually started looking into last year, and I'm really excited to dig into that a little bit more and figure out exactly why this is. Where is this pressure coming from? Is this pressure societal pressure? Is it partner pressure? Is it self-induced pressure, which is probably still societal pressure really at its core? And how can we help support mothers? Because certainly there are significant ramifications, both emotionally and physically, for engaging in any type of intimacy before feeling ready to do so. So I want to start talking a little bit on burnout. And just before I dig into what we found, I just want to share a little bit about what burnout means. Burnout is more than a catchphrase. Burnout is actually now recognized by the World Health Organization as an occupational phenomenon. It's defined as feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. Now, the WHO is talking about burnout again as a professional diagnosis when it comes to the workplace, but we can all agree that for mothers, being a parent is a significant or the primary component of their sort of professional life, whether or not they also are employed. So I think it's only fair that the definition apply to them too. And it's something that's really important to consider because it has very real consequences. Burnout leads to significant medical conditions like stress, heart disease, depression, high blood pressure, diabetes, and more. There are incredible economic ramifications, but way more important, it is impacting people's well-being and their lives. Essentially burnout can lead to death. And so it's something that we really need to address. And it's a big problem because 97% of millennial mothers reported feeling burned out by motherhood at least some of the time. So that's pretty much everyone. Factors that contribute to burnout are having more than one child. And interestingly, employed moms are actually less likely to feel parenting burnout than non-employed moms. So when we talk about burnout, often we talk about self-care. Well, but just take care of yourself. Just do a little bit of self-care and your burnout will be fine. And it's interesting because the onus of fixing burnout is therefore often placed on the mothers themselves. I talk a lot about burnout at my work with Motherly, and people will often say, I get sort of two responses, people who are like, yeah, I'm really burnt out, I feel you. And people who say, well, you're just taking on too much. You just need to do less. You just need to take better care of yourself. And I think that all of that is probably true. I could say no to being the mom of the class, class ambassador or whatever my title is there. I could say no to, birthday parties. I could do a better job of saying no and also I didn't have a paid maternity leave, not with Motherly. I wasn't with Motherly at the time. You know, like there are systemic issues at place that are causing our burnout. And it's important to remember that, you know, there's no bubble bath or glass of wine that will undo the stress of systemic shortcomings. And I think we need to take a much broader look at what self-care means. It's become like this catchphrase, right? But self-care is more than that bubble bath and that glass of wine. Self-care is setting, you know, really significant boundaries for yourself. It's making appointments with mental health therapists when you're able to. It's, you know, advocating for mothers. It's doing all of this work. I think we need to look at self-care again at more of like a foundational level. A couple of the aspects that we looked at self-care in our study was sleep, of course. Not surprisingly, only 8% of moms get 8 or more hours of sleep a night, and almost half get less than 6 hours of sleep at night. Certainly, unsurprisingly, sleep is more scarce among moms of multiple young children, and it does tend to get better once they're older. Socialization, again, we talked about the significance of social support. About 50% of moms, and this was the pre-COVID portion, so I'm sure you know this is much higher now, but 50% of moms report not going out with friends in the past month. And 50% have not gone on a date with their partner in the past month. Almost 70% of moms had less than 1 hour to themselves without work or family obligations in the last day. And again, this was pre-COVID, so it would be interesting to see how the numbers have changed. So when we look at the impact of COVID-19, 74% of mothers reporting that they feel mentally worse since it began. The positive, I guess, is that there's a 12% improvement on the division of household labor for partnered mothers, but still 74% of mothers feel worse since the start of COVID. The most significant cause of stress is childcare. And I think it's important that we really address this. I think COVID is, you know, things are shifting, the country is reopening, but it's still incredibly slowly, and who knows what the future holds. This is a very real threat to our sort of mental health on an ongoing basis. And so now is a time for being both incredibly gentle on ourselves and also being really proactive when it comes to putting up those boundaries and doing that sort of radical self-care, not just getting to bed an hour earlier, but making appointments with therapists when we can, you know, eating really great, awesome foods, and working with politicians and policymakers to make things better for all moms on a foundational level. After COVID is over, employed mothers are hoping to see more flexibility for themselves or their partners, and are hoping to see more family time together. And stay-at-home moms are looking for more family time together, and they're also actually more interested in paying off debts and becoming financially stable. One of the things that we also look at in the State of Motherhood survey is what mothers want to foster in their children. And kindness has won, I believe, every year. But the top 3 are kindness, respect, and resiliency. And when we look at what mothers want to foster in themselves, it's patience. I can definitely relate to that one, especially in the home with my children for 3 months straight now. So patience, understanding, and compassion. The last thing that I'd like to share is just in our COVID-19 addendum study, we looked at how the pandemic has affected mamas of different ethnicities. A higher percentage of Black mothers reported being designated as essential workers, so it was up at about 39%. Perhaps because of this, there has been a slightly lower proportion of layoffs, according to our study, at about 14%. And fewer Black mothers reported feeling mentally worse. They are still feeling mentally worse, but just at a slightly lower rate than white mothers. In the Hispanic community, 39% of mothers are designated as essential workers. 40% have been laid off by COVID, and there was a higher rate of feeling mentally worse during COVID. And for white and Caucasian mothers, 33% were designated as essential workers. 30%, about 32% reported that they or their partners have been laid off. And about 75% are feeling mentally worse. So I think, you know, there's so much more that we could dig into there. But again, recognizing that things were rough and COVID has made them much rougher. And so this is really a time where, you know, we're so grateful to the other speakers who are here today, and to Mom Congress for, again, you know, doing the work of getting to the root of these issues. And Motherly has a website, yearofthemother.org. So if anybody is interested in sort of joining forces and working with us to help to make these foundational issues better, we welcome you. We'd love to have you. And I think that is it from me. I'm honored to take questions afterwards. And thank you so much.